Are you looking to get ready, be prepared, and transform your financial future? Then you've come to the right place. This is the Get Ready Money podcast with Tony Stewart, where Tony has insightful conversations with financial experts who are changing the way we think about money. Catch up on the latest financial trends and hear practical advice from Tony and his expert guests so you can build healthy habits that work. Be empowered with tips for implementing small changes that can have a big impact on your financial future. So sit back and get ready to hear from today's guest.
Welcome to the Get Ready Money podcast, changing the way we think about money. I'm pleased to be joined today again by Katherine Pomerantz, Rhianna Basore, and Joe Saul-Sehy. In this special episode, we'll continue the conversation on applying the principles of improv and how they can change the way you think about money. Thanks, everyone, for joining me again for this episode of the Get Ready Money podcast.
Thank you.
Yeah, glad to have everyone back. So, let's do another quick round of introductions and how you got interested in money before we launch in. Katherine, you want to start off?
Sure, I'd be happy to start off. So, for those who don't know me, I run a strategic tax and financial operations firm for expert brands. I got into money because I was a starving artist. And I was having a lot of fun, but money was the greatest source of stress in my life. And I thought, I am not alone in this. Rhianna can speak to this. There's a lot of people in that group that don't have a lot of confidence or a lot of wherewithal with money. And I thought if I could solve how money worked, I could help a lot of people. I ended up completely falling in love with what I was learning as I was just self-teaching myself and decided I have to make money my full-time job. And about a year later, I had started my own accounting firm. I like taxes in particular because I think that they're a great gateway to true wealth building and like introducing people to other things like building assets and investments and thinking about their long-term plans. So it's a very fun job, although I don't think you hear that from a lot of tax preparers, but I enjoy it immensely.
Oh, come on. Everybody thinks that taxes and fun in the same sentence.
They should. That's why we're here today. Let's make it fun.
Or tax is
Exactly.
a gateway drug to wealth. Like I never thought about that before either.
I know.
All tax deductions are little rewards for doing good financial behaviors. You get a little tax deduction for your own healthcare. You get a little tax deduction for your own retirement. You get a little tax deduction for saving for your kids. So yeah. I'm teaching people good habits by teaching them to save money on taxes.
I feel like it's like treats for my cat.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Ooh, a tax deduction.
Yep.
But I'm writing that down, Katherine. That's awesome. Tax deductions are rewards for good financial behavior. I have not heard that anywhere before. So we can just stop recording now. So I think we're good. I have the snippet.
Nailed it in one.
Yeah. Rhianna, how about you?
Hi, I'm Rhianna Basore. I am a producer and money coach for high achieving creative women. My story, like Catherine's, got started when I was a very successful but broke theater actress, traveling the world, living at the height of my profession. And yet my bank account did not match the career achievement I had enjoyed as a creative. And I couldn't understand why that difference was. It turns out those are called business and accounting classes. And after I cleaned up my own financial mess, I became passionate about giving high achieving creative women the freedom and the tools to live the life of empowerment as the financial engine of their lives. I truly believe that visionaries, creatives, thought leaders are the future of where we're headed. And if we don't have the freedom to financially explore the things that are on our hearts or on our minds or on our souls, then we won't get that next level, both culturally and personally. So I am here to provide women the tools and the translation to overcome money fears, to set themselves free to live their best life.
Well, that is awesome. And, so much of the financial world does not talk to women. So it's so important, to bridge that gap. And Joe, how about you? What's your origin story?
Yeah, Joe Saul-Sehy. And I was a money disaster. I was a creative writing major in college, which is how I ended up in finance. So, but what's funny is because I was a money disaster, but I was always attracted to these people on television that would always talk about the cool things you could do to save money at the grocery store or on your utilities or by understanding investments or taxes or whatever it was. I was like, these people are so cool. When a friend of mine asked me if I wanted to be a financial advisor at one of the big, huge predatory firms that just bring in a ton of people who don't know anything about money, teach them a bunch of sales skills. And yeah, you learn a lot about sales and not a ton about finance. It turned out that I really took the creative writing love that I had and was able to talk very straightforward about money when a lot of people couldn't. And so over my career, it turned out I wasn't great at sales. I was great at just talking bluntly about this is really good, this is really bad. Over time, through a series of mistakes, I started the Stacking Benjamin show after a 16-year career as a financial planner. So for the past 14 years, we've been broadcasting from my mom's basement in Texarkana, Texas, this You Can Do It 3 times a week podcast, teaching people money. We call it the greatest money show on earth because it's a circus. Kiplinger and both Kiplinger and Bankrate have called it the #1 personal finance podcast in America. And we just have a lot of fun entertaining ourselves and hopefully other people.
That is awesome. Well, glad to have all of you here today. So, to tee this up, I want to share a snippet from the Pan Theater's Rules of Improv. It goes, commit to everything you're doing and find moment-to-moment objectives. Listen to what your partner says and doesn't say. Look for the why in everything said and done by those in the scene. Choose, use, and play status to be changed with every beat. So, I think these apply perfectly to money and life. So, maybe let's kick it off with that concept of commit to everything. So whoever wants to jump in, go for it.
This reminds me of something my acting teacher says, which is love takes time, love makes time. The things where you spend the time, the investment, the energy, and the focus, the relationships, the skills, the understanding, those are the things that grow, right? There's some metaphysical law that like what you focus on expands. And so when it comes to money, this is also true, not only in confidence, but opportunity and making smarter choices like Katherine has talked about, and also in understanding like Joe just talked about. It really is about embracing with love what's in front of you in order to learn the lessons of the moment and capitalize on the opportunity.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Katherine.
Oh, actually I'm really curious about what you'll say because I'm reminded of our mutual friend Paula Pant, where it's like you can afford anything but not everything when they commit to everything. So I'm like, I think I want to clarify that this doesn't mean go do all the things with your money. But it doesn't mean that in an improv context either, because you're working with the person in front of you. And so I love what you said, Rhianna, about commit to everything by committing fully in love to the next right thing or the one thing that you value the most. I don't think we need to go get everything with our money. We're going to end up doing a lot more than is even possible. And then we might end up spending a lot more than we need to. But so I'm just really, I'm curious if you agree with me, Joe, because I would have guessed that would have been your answer.
No, I was actually going to go a different way, but I love all that. Mine was, when we hear the word commit at first, I think for me that raises my anxiety, the idea of committing. And yet, we hear these talking heads all the time and they roll off me 99% of the time. Like, yeah, whatever. That's fine. Cool. Doesn't resonate. But about a year and a half ago, I heard this woman and I looked her up in preparation to today, again, to make sure I got her name right. And it is Dr. Ellen Langer from Harvard. And I actually heard her on another podcast. We didn't have her on Stacking Benjamins, and I should have. But she's a professor of psychology talking about decision making. And she said, and this is great because committing actually lowers the temperature. If you think about commitment in the right way. She says, Dr. Langer says that we spend way too much time trying to make the right 100% right decision. And when it comes to money management, I think also with improv, when you don't know what's coming next, right? It's very difficult to know what's going to come out of somebody's mouth next in improv. We spend a ton of time Roth IRA, traditional IRA, or do I open up this credit card for these points, or do I stay away from credit altogether? Like, what's the right move? Her point is, it doesn't matter. What matters 100% more is that you commit to the thing that you chose. And once you stop wasting time with trying to make the perfect decision, which freezes you, and instead, if Rhianna opens it up one way and then Katherine goes, I'm going this way with the discussion, and I go, no, I'm going this way with the discussion. When I fully commit to the thing that I chose, instead of spending all my time second guessing my decision, which is a complete waste of time, I can't do anything about it. And I also think that if I do second guess myself, that I end up assuming that the way that I didn't choose was going to be better, and I have no idea if it was going to be better or not. So spend all your time committing and relax around the decision-making, I think, is a much better approach. I loved it when I heard her say that on the Rich Roll podcast.
Yeah. Because when we commit and decide fully, we're free to decide again.
Right.
Yeah. So I totally agree. I think I see that all the time with my clients who are business owners and who are, a lot of them are personal brands, so that their reputation and their knowledge feels at stake, where go all in. And if it's not working, let's just change the strategy in 90 days, guys. Right? Like you're totally free to do that. But if you don't go all in, you won't know if you're getting results. You won't have enough skin in the game to even see the needle move either direction. Right? So I love that takeaway.
I love that idea, Katherine, because we think often, when I was a financial planner, people would think it was permanent. The moves we were making were permanent, and almost nothing is permanent.
No.
If I said the word irrevocable, we really needed to sit up and pay attention, right? But how many of these decisions are irrevocable? It's only when we're doing this long-term estate planning.
Yeah. Yeah. I even talk about it with taxes, right? I can always amend the tax return. Not always forever, but I've got like a 3-7 year period for certain types of decisions that we can just redo it. It's okay.
Yeah.
And even most estate planning is not permanent, unless you set up an irrevocable trust or have an irrevocable beneficiary. Everything else is, you can redo it. The other thing that comes to mind for me is, with thinking about commitment, is also the physical commitment when you're in a scene. Like, if you have a glass of water, you just can't magically drop it. You have to put it on an imaginary table. And for people out there watching and listening, if you watch Stephen Colbert, you can see this in his monologue when he has an imaginary item. I don't know if the three of you watch Stephen Colbert at all, but in his monologue, when he has an item, he'll put it away. He'll put it in his jacket. He'll put it down to the side of the stage or whatever, so he's fully committed to the thing. And I think, as an audience member, is if you don't see that commitment, right away. And we were talking pre-show about advisors and insurance agents, and when they're not really fully committed, or they don't really know, it does come across. And so I think, we can also apply that for you as a consumer, that if you're looking for somebody to work with, look for an advisor who's committed to who you are, that resonates with you. Like Katherine, you were saying, you went out there and created the type of advisor that you wanted.
Yeah. Do you think that goes so far even as don't use advisors who aren't using their own strategies? That's something I think a lot about, is that if I'm a real estate investor, but I hire an accountant who doesn't do a lot of real estate investing themselves, or even handles it a lot. It's are you going to be fully committed to me? Are you going to stay up to date with the things that we need to do this well? I don't know if that's taking it too far, but I always am it's don't trust a coach who doesn't invest in coaching. It's something that I hear.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if we also should apply that to some of our financial people, right? How can you really advise me on this if you're not fully in it? If you're not also following some of these strategies yourself, right? Or at least have a lot of experience.
At the very least, they're committed to the niche. We were having a discussion, speaking of Paula Pant, she and I were having a discussion yesterday about hiring. We got a question about 1099 work. And this woman for the first time was going to be a 1099 person. What do I need to think about? And what professional should I have in my corner? And I was explaining to her that while, you know, you've enrolled agents, you have tax attorneys. I wouldn't go with either one of those in this case. I'd look for a CPA. However, CPA, as you know, Catherine, more than anybody, is still an incredibly wide field.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want just a CPA. I need somebody who is working with other people that do 1099 all the time, that know exactly what's going on. And I also said, I was bragging about my relationship with you and about how also combining it with bookkeeping. So on a month-to-month basis, like Catherine and her team know exactly, I know what I can write off because month by month, we're exploring actually what we do in my business.
Yeah. Yeah. I cannot tell you the number of times I've talked to financial planners who don't specialize in small businesses and small business owners. And I'm describing to them how to set up 401ks correctly because it's just not, there's just so many different things to do that you can do that is so unique to that niche. And that's true for every niche. Right. And so I live that every day where I'm just like, did you know your clients can get a tax credit, but only if they invest a certain dollar amount in their small business thing? You don't know that? Okay, great. So like you gave them the wrong advice. Right. And so it's just, it's wild out there, y'all.
Well, and I think also to go back to what Tony was saying is the power of belief. If they don't believe in the business that you're building, they can't see it for you. And so they can't find those niche or specialized opportunities that serve your business. Because I know, especially for those creative business owners, often the path is not certain. They do not have a clear path to what 65 looks like. And so having a advisor or a support person that holds the belief in the vision so that in real time they can commit to what the decision is in front of them is a huge gift. Because if they're getting one size fits all advice, it doesn't match the real opportunities of a crafted in your own image business like a creative visionary has.
Yeah.
Well, and what I like about what you just said, Rhianna, is also somebody who's committed enough to the niche that you're in and they've worked it long enough that they can help you see the road ahead. Because especially for creative people where that is such a cloudy road, to be able to kind of to have an advisor that puts their arm around you and goes, you know what? Many people have walked this way before. We don't have to redesign it. I mean, again, we get to lower the temperature by having the right person in our corner. It's funny, when I first became a financial planner, I got angry because Susie Orman was just kind of hitting the scene in the mid 90s. And she said this horrible thing. I've been an advisor for maybe 4 years. I remember her saying, do not hire somebody unless they have 10 years experience. We're talking even further than that, right? 10 years experience, but also niching into what you want, what you do, your area. And I remember even then, just with 10 years experience, I'm like, I've been around 4 years and I'm amazing. And I was winning all kinds of awards. I was doing great. You know, what's funny? I've been in this business either on the media side now or on the financial advising side for over 30 years. Susie wasn't wrong. Susie was 100% right. Because if somebody's been around for 10 years, they've at least had the commitment, going back to committing, they've had the commitment to their craft to know that niching down is going to be the right thing, not just for the client, but for you too, because you get a lot of joy in seeing your client succeed.
Joe, you bring up something that I think is really, really important is the rate of attrition with financial advisors and insurance agents is huge. 95% of life insurance agents are out of the business within the first 5 years. And there's a pretty high rate of churn with other financial advisors. So, you know, when you're talking about it, it is hard then for a young person, but at the same time, as a consumer, you don't have, this is your money and you can't play around with it. Um, you know, so that does make it hard for the new people, but it is something that with experience you learn. And it's just like, you know, I always come back to the medical world, and especially with some of the things we were talking about, you wouldn't go to your podiatrist and ask them to give you new eyeglasses. Now, they could probably figure it out because they're probably smart people and they're a doctor, but it's not the right fit. And I think that's something too, you know, that in improv, you're constantly trying to find the right fit. So if Rhianna came up to me and told me that she was the queen of the universe and she had a castle on Mars, I wouldn't look at her and say, no, you don't. I would say, wow, tell me about the castle. Do you have, AC in there?
I'd be like, and when is your invite to tea? Come over.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it's like, how can you adapt? And I think this is really important for advisors. I recorded another episode this morning with a couple of AI experts, and they're deep in the AI. And we were talking about how AI is going to replace everybody but the advisors who really can connect with humans as humans. And, that improv, I think, is a skill that advisors can learn from to become better listeners. So that brings us to the next part that I think we should really, focus on is listen to what your partner says. And most importantly, what your partner doesn't say.
Yeah.
So anybody want to take that one on?
It's really interesting to me because this is our part 2. I don't know if we've emphasized that yet, that we've actually had a discussion about improv and this applies to finance. And I got a lot of love for that interview. So thank you for inviting us back. But I shout that out because I think one of our biggest takeaways the first time we talked about this is the importance of play. Joe talked about it's important for us to lower the temperature. And I think we talked a lot about exploring the play side of that. And today it seems like, okay, but we take it seriously too. Like take this really deadly seriously, right? And it's a both and. And so what the person doesn't say makes me think of what is the actual like fear or worry. And I think this, maybe my brain goes there, Joe, because of also what you said about having somebody with the right level of experience, that they know the path ahead. I had a client that we recently onboarded who came to one of my live events, and she shared like, yeah, I have a hard time trusting. I just have never found anybody I can trust with this, like being a tax person or you're offloading this. And I just kind of like looked at her and I'm like, let's talk that through. And when it really came down to it, it wasn't actually a trust issue. It was the issue of she's the expert and her worth comes from being the one with all the answers. And so if she's not the one who understands it and does it first and figures it out, she didn't know how to function without. That was the way that she had solved every other problem in her life and business. But to get to the tax level and expertise that she needed, she would have to literally become my business, right? And she didn't want to do that. So that it was a trust issue, but it was more about releasing that worthiness for her. And that actually became, oh, okay, if I can get that out of my way, then I can actually step into these higher level things that maybe I don't fully understand, but I know that finding the right team is the next right step for me to get to the financial goals that I really want to pull off. And so I think that story is, I don't know if that applies directly to the improv metaphor as strongly, but when you say that, that's instantly what my brain goes to, is like knowing enough about this to know the questions you're not, the emotions, I guess, the questions you're not saying or stating about the emotional experience that you're having with these decisions. Being able to bring that to your attention and think about that before you decide, and calling it out, I guess. That would make good improv scenes, is calling out the feelings. But yeah,
I was going to say, Katherine, this is literally improv, which is trusting your partner to have your back when you don't know what to say or do next. Like, this is the trust that being in the moment and being excellent, like Joe is talking about, that you're building, is knowing it's not a monologue. You're not there by yourself. Even if you fall flat on your face, the other person is there with the right tools to support you. And I think so often, you're right, when it comes to money, there is this fear that holds people back from the vulnerability of making a different choice, which in this case was what she needed to grow to the next place. She needed to bring someone on her team to support her, to have her back, so she could do the stuff she was really great at. And so often in improv, I think in the beginning, we think it's all about us. But as we become excellent and get those 10 years in, like Joe's talking about, we realize it is actually about listening deeper, like Tony is talking about, ultimate presence, about not having anything else in your head except for the person in front of you. And that is building trust at like an intuitive level, so you don't have to doubt. You know it's there.
What I love that you called out there, Rhianna, was all about Katherine's response, because I thought that was just an example of what, not just what your partner, in this case, this other woman, is saying, but what she's not saying. And when we hear in an improv situation, I think what's really cool, Catherine, was in this case, you just became the advisor. Like in most cases, we talked earlier about committing and about having the right person who is committed in your corner. In most cases, if she said, I'm not trusting a salesperson who's brand new or newer at their job, or who isn't in the niche, would say, well, let me tell you why you can trust me. And all of a sudden it turns into a sales pitch about why Katherine Pomerantz is a badass and how I'm really cool and you should trust me and all of your stuff. But Katherine didn't say that at all. And this is what I like about improv and comparing this is with your partner, it's not just what they're saying, but what they're not saying. And you cut directly to what they're not saying. You said, let's walk through that, which was your first answer to her, was let's walk through this fact that you don't trust people. So even though she hasn't hired you yet, you're not the advisor, you're just a friend, you're going to help her out already. Like you're already playing the part, which I thought was amazing. And often when I see people, let's take the advisory role out of this, even in any relationship, if your partner is having trouble budgeting or having trouble with your investments or doesn't want to sit down and look at it, like the question isn't about what they're telling you. It's about where is that block, and having the grace, I think, to look beyond the question to what's really holding my partner up in this situation is a huge part in winning with money. Yeah.
That was actually going to be my question that I asked after Rhianna's statement is we've talked a lot about the advisor and the partner and the trust. Is this something you do by yourself?
Yeah, I think you can look beyond it. The thing that I'm reminded of is I used to teach wilderness first response, and we'd set up multi-victim scenarios, multi-patient scenarios, and we'd always have one patient who was a distractor. So when a group of rescuers would come upon the group, there was one patient would have a little, fake blood on them, but they'd be really loud and really distracting, and their whole job was to distract the rescuers from the more serious victims or patients, excuse me, patients, not victims. And that was really interesting because it's like, okay, are you focused on the scene and the greater picture? Or Catherine, in this case, are you focused on that one thing that is a distractor from uncovering what's really going on? And in improv, for me, part of it is, you're trying to find out what's going on, because neither are you really. I mean, of course, you don't know what's going on because you're creating the reality as you go. But, I think when it comes to our money is we don't know. There's so much we don't know.
Yeah.
That none of it is fixed and it's all flexible.
Well, and that's where we're training curiosity, right? We're asking, and what else? And what more? And what does that mean? And in so doing, we are constantly investigating the next conversation or moment or decision that we need to make with play, with interest, with positivity, as opposed to fear. Because in some cognitive backgrounds, they believe that you can either have love and joy or you can have fear. They cancel each other out. And so if you're able to approach a situation where previously maybe you have been trepidatious or afraid or whatever it is that's activated in your body, by exploring it with that more positive curiosity or play approach, you are moving past the fear at a cognitive level.
I think that brings up the importance of love that you highlighted earlier, because sometimes you can't get all the way to play, but just to bring the temperature down, you just have to approach it with love. I see you. I hear you. That really sucks that that's been your experience with this. Let's commit to just doing a different experience for the future. We'll experiment and figure out what that is. We'll be playful about it, but no shame here, right? We're just trying something else next time. And I think that is all that it takes sometimes too.
And that's like the improv game, new choice, new choice, new choice, new choice.
I want to go back earlier, Rhianna. The word trepidatious, I think, is my new favorite word. But very serious. I've heard the word before, but I don't hear it enough. And, trepidatious sounds to me like I'm, if I'm playing and I'm 4 years old, like it's a dinosaur, the trepidatious, but it does become trepidatious Rex, right? Yeah. It gets bigger and bigger and it becomes this huge thing in the background as I get more and more afraid. And this idea of love, I think, love conquers all.
And avoidance is a choice.
Yeah.
And it is a damaging choice in the long run. As we know, every money decision is an opportunity to change your future. And so if you are abstaining from committing or making a decision, you are making a very important choice. And it takes sometimes a long time for individuals to realize that.
Yeah.
Great point.
I'm reminded of a client that that asked me a question recently that was like, how can I lower the interest payments on my credit cards? She's going through some cash flow crunch that's common in small business right now. And she's been working on her debt. And, business debt is different than personal debt, but it still sucks. And she's like, how can I lower the interest payments? How can I lower the interest payments? I'm like, that's wrong question, fam. Like, what are we not saying? Like, how do you lower interest payments? Have less debt.
Yeah.
So let's
take it to zero.
Yeah, get it back to zero. So like let's focus on the right. This is hard, but let's focus on the right hard thing. That means this is just going to get handled, right? Like I know that this could have there'd be more short-term solutions, but let's spend that energy on this other thing to get back to being more profitable, better revenue, and then the debt will just be we can handle that differently then, right? And so I think that's the right hard question to ask. What are you not saying?
It's so awesome, Catherine. I had a mentor a long time ago who gave me this great, he would always say, Joe, there's short-term and obvious, and there's long-term and not so obvious, and always look for the long-term and not so obvious solution.
Yeah.
And so how do we pay less interest? Well, we can consolidate the debt, but that doesn't solve the problem. Have less debt.
Yeah. Have less debt. Yeah. And sorry, this is what I do every day. So I'm like, in this context, have less debt. What does that mean? Right? Like there's even actually more long-term questions beyond that, right? It's not just, oh, we need to get more cash flow to this debt. It's like, well, where does the cash flow come from? What's the strategy? Right. And so Rhianna said something about that series of questions, I think. What is the series of questions? Let's look for the why. I think look for the why. Was that one of our next improv things? There we go. I just gave us a lead in for the next one.
Well, and that's exactly what I was going to say, Catherine, is that the excellence that Joe was talking about comes from asking the right questions. In an improv, you can fixate on all the things that are happening one at a time, but there is something that is going to yield more theatrical fruit than anything else. And with time and excellence and training, you can zone in on that, which is what you did, is you said, okay, but there's another question and there's another question.
Yeah. No, we're not taking care of the noisiest patient, because if they're loud and noisy, they're probably also not the one who needs the most emergency care.
Ooh.
Yeah,
They
they're
can
fine.
get up
Their
and
airway
scream.
is fine.
Yeah.
They're screaming.
Yeah, exactly.
They're breathing.
Exactly.
So you rule out airway, you can rule out breathing, but they're doing fine.
Yeah, they're getting up and walking around and tugging on your clothes. You're good. Let me go talk to this person
You've got
over
good
here.
circulation,
Yeah.
you can rule out a whole bunch of things really quickly. But, I think that what you said, Rhianna, the excellence comes from asking the right questions. And I don't know if any of you are familiar with life planning and George Kinder and his work, about really getting into these things about what does a client want and asking why. And that's what's really resonating with me from this conversation is, and that's where it comes from improv is you don't know where the client's going to take you if you really get curious. And improv is like that. You have no idea where the scene's going to go when you start.
Can I throw a curveball question at us?
Of
You
course.
said something about theatrical fruit. So what yields the best theatrical fruit? Because I bet we could kind of align that with the things that also lead to like the best life lived, right? Like what are the things we actually should be asking about with making life interesting and enjoyable?
Well, the thing, and because it's based in the body, it's hard to know except in the moment. Like it's an instinct, I think. But what I know is the thing that is most connected to who we are authentically, that surprises us. That's where it is, because it's about what makes us feel the most alive. And the audience, because we're empathetic creatures, will feel the most alive as well. And that's why we come together in a theatrical setting, as opposed to staying home and watching Netflix, which is also great, is to have that shared experience of being fully alive. And so when we lead into that little bit of sparkle factor, the feeling of aliveness, that's the theatrical fruit.
I 100% agree. And what's funny is Several years ago, we started hearing a lot of people say, follow your passion, which initially sounds like the same thing. But I think for all of us that always kind of rubbed us the wrong way. I had this woman, Bonnie Hammer, who is the vice chairperson of NBC Universal, come on, who said, don't follow your passion, follow the opportunity. Because, and as an example from her career, she thought she loved photography. She was sure she loved photography. Well, when she got into photography, she found out that setting up these corporate shots that for her were really boring and really stayed, instead of seeing the liveliness and breathing life into this stuff, wasn't at all what she liked. And she said that if she would have, quote, followed her passion, she didn't realize she was too young to really know where the seed of that passion came from. And what she found while she got hired as a person to help this dog, the dog was the main star of this show on this public TV station where she lived. And her dog was to her job was pick up the dog poop and was to help the dog get to the scene and take the dog back from the scene. And she just took care of the dog. And she found that to be incredible. And she realized the reason she liked photography was the life and the framing of the shot. Well, guess what you also did in television? And she ended up becoming obviously a huge TV exec because she didn't limit herself to only passion. It was when she saw an opportunity. The reason you see an opportunity, I think, Rhianna, is exactly what you're saying, is because it lights you up. And when she realized that what lit her up was not the I love photography, but was this idea of creating scenes, really, really helped her a lot. And I think especially with young people, like learning to follow opportunity versus passion is a huge thing, which leads to the next thing. We're ostensibly talking about money. It also is never about the money.
No.
I've never been a person where the money truly lights them up. It's always something else.
And the money follows the passion. It's hard to explain, but when you do something with dedication and curiosity, you inevitably have success. And that is because people are, in the same way, empathetically attracted to the thing that you're doing, because everyone wants to feel that way. And so if it's making model aardvarks or building zoos, like, people are fascinated by people that are obsessed. And that leads to excellence, which leads to money. I had a filmmaker producer friend once say to me, he's like, you can't predict outcome, but you can perfect process, and process creates outcome. And I think that's
so interesting.
Yeah,
that's exactly how I set KPIs with clients. I tell them all the time, like, revenue or profit are bad KPIs. I do not use those as success metrics, even though I'm all about the money, because if your process is working, those are inevitable financial outcomes. If you've identified the right strategy and you hone the process, you will make more money.
Yeah. But if you're focusing only on outcome, which is bottom line, you're pushing it away because you're creating worry, stress, anxiety, all the stuff that Joe was talking about much earlier.
Well, Rhianna, there's a great video clip just in the last week that the sports world's talking about. Number one golfer in the world, a guy named Scottie Scheffler. He was asked a question about, so what do you think about winning the next thing? And he goes, you know what? That is not fulfilling at all. Like truly, my whole goal ostensibly is to become the number one golfer in the world. And then you get there, you win the big tournament. He goes, you know what happens? I hug my wife, I hug my family, I high five my fans. And in 4 minutes, it's gone. It's just completely gone. And yet you see, this is what we glorify and this is what we think about. He goes, you know what really lights me up? Being out on the practice green for 8 hours. He goes, I just love the practice green. I just think it's super fun to be on the practice green. And so when we get, and I feel like our society is very outcome oriented, and to hear the number one golfer in the world go, the outcome is irrelevant. It's so irrelevant. It's this commitment to process and being the best that I can at this thing that I love is way more fulfilling.
Which is deep curiosity. To go back to that thread, is if you're deeply curious what makes a great golf swing under all circumstances, you're working on your process with joy.
Yes. Which is so funny, Rhianna, because even as he's saying that, I'm like, nothing to me is more boring than golf.
I'm with you on that. So yeah, I hate to do this, but it's time to start to close.
Oh no, come on.
Yeah. Sorry. So to close, let's do a quick summary of what our number one takeaway or tip is for the audience from this conversation. Katherine, you want to lead off?
Yeah, my number one takeaway is that we have to be serious about this, but that doesn't look the way people think, is that to be deadly serious and fully committed is about love and joy and being obsessed with the process. And that's actually what's going to make us stick it out, is that we're obsessed with this story and seeing it's not its outcomes, but like getting to be there for the outcomes, right? Being present for those outcomes.
I love that. Be present for the outcomes. Rhianna.
I think for me, it's listen deeper to what's being said, both for yourself and to the people that you're talking to, because this is a very changing time. I think a lot of structures are shifting that felt quite permanent. And so when these external markers are moving against our will, I hear a lot of insecurity around guidance. But if we are listening deeply to ourselves, our partner, and the moment, we will know the next right thing to focus on. And when it's time to shift again by committing to the present moment.
I love that. I love that. Joe.
I think that giving up, putting a lot of energy around making the 100% right decision, and instead committing to the one that you chose, and then following your own energy. What about that decision lights me up? And looking for the opportunity wherever you are is where you're going to find happiness.
That's fantastic. So where can people connect and learn more with each of you? Joe, let's go in reverse order. Let's start with you. I
Sure.
heard you have a podcast. Do you have a podcast?
I might. It's not as awesome as Tony's podcast, but it's pretty darn good. We try hard. 3 days a week. It's called the Stacking Benjamin Show. We call it the greatest money show on earth, not because we're cocky, but because it's a complete circus. It's live from my mom's basement. If we can do it from mom's basement, you can do it too. And so we go over current events. We talked about Scotty Scheffler. We actually play that clip and we talk about this, about how, what are you truly chasing? And about how it's not always about money. It's about more purpose and more life. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, wherever you're listening to us now, the Stacking Benjamin Show.
Fantastic. And it is a great show. And also, I love your newsletter that accompanies
Me
it
too.
with all the
Thanks.
quotes. And I'm not even sure how to describe it. It's unlike any other newsletter, but it's fantastic.
Tony, can I give you actually I will give you a scoop that nobody knows yet. Literally nobody knows yet, except our internal team, that our guides and our newsletter, we're finding ways to attach AI, speaking about AI, to that, so you can even find deeper stuff. But as everybody knows, and I'm sure you guys probably talked about, the problem in personal finance right now is AI fakes it till it makes it way too much right now. And that's a huge problem in the personal finance, especially. It will get, especially in Catherine's area of taxes, it gives you the wrong information just because of the way it works. Yeah. We're using AI in a cool new way. So that's coming to Stacking Benjamins as well, where it's only going to curate our stuff that we have said, not the entire universe, so that you're more likely to get a good answer.
Fantastic. And along those lines, I've actually created an AI clone that I haven't really publicized much, that's trained on all of my content. So hopefully it gives you good answers on insurance.
Oh, sweet.
So, that's available through my website for people who are watching and listening. And Rhianna, okay, before you start, I just want to say, for people watching and listening, follow Rhianna on LinkedIn. I love your weekly, I guess, I don't know if they're weekly, but I'd call them meditations more than articles.
Me
I'm
too.
stealing your
I'm
thunder,
everyone's biggest fan today. Me too.
So now you can find Rhianna on LinkedIn. Where else can people find you?
Yes, well, thank you for that shout out, my friends. I love sending out my little money love letters to the universe. So the hub for all of my work for my company, which is Self Trust Fund, is at selftrustfund.com, because we have to build the self-trust in order to have the foundation, like a trust fund, to create the financial future of our dreams. I do have a little money newsletter that I do on LinkedIn. Please follow me there. You can do either Your Money Circle or the Self-Trust Fund newsletter. They're essentially the same, serving different audiences. So that is the best way to get a free taste of my work. If you want to dive in deeper, I have my course, How to Slay Your Money Monsters, because we do not want our money monsters to keep us stuck, broke, and afraid when there is a whole world waiting for our creative gifts.
Fantastic. And Katherine, how about you?
You can find me at katherinepomerantz.com. I'm also very active on LinkedIn, and I have a newsletter. I publish a lot on leadership and small business and taxes. We're doing a little bit of a rebrand since we're all confessing things other people don't know yet. So most of my free tips and resources are getting a little bit of some love, so they won't be live for a few more months, but the newsletter is always there. I'm really active on LinkedIn. You can book a call if you're interested in having my team support your business. We'd love to have you.
Fantastic. And for everybody watching and listening, as always, there will be links to everybody's website, newsletters, social media profiles, so you can get in touch with all the guests today. So thank you all for joining us again today on the Get Ready Money podcast.
Thanks so much, Tony.
Yep, always a pleasure.
Yeah, definitely a lot of fun. And thank you, everyone, as always, for tuning in to this episode of the Get Ready Money podcast. If you learned something today to change the way you think about money, please be sure to subscribe and to tell a friend. You can also go to my website, tonystewart.com, and access the Ask Tony AI, plus receive my newsletter and a whole lot more. Until next time, let's change the way we think about